Yo, how's it going everybody? You got Sketch here and welcome back to the channel. On this episode we're checking out a port of NG Dev's arcade game from 2014 that was initially made for the Neo-Geo that is now available on the Nintendo Switch. It also draws some comparisons to other horizontal shooters of the late 90s and early 2000s that's easy to learn but difficult to master. We're looking at Razion EX, developed and published by NG Dev, releasing in 2014 for the Neo-Geo and getting an updated port to the Switch in 2021. I would say let's check out the story, but there really isn't one. Here we're straight to the point, high octane action. Gameplay wise, you got a 2.5D horizontal shoot 'em up that will take you through 6 stages of bullet hell, letting you pick from 3 difficulties being novice, normal, and maniac. The game is very simple with its 2-button control scheme to fire your base shot and charge shot that has a cooldown. What also has a cooldown here is your base shot string. Once your meter is full, your shot spread is wider until you fire a charge shot, which will temporarily bring your shot power down until it recharges. There's also the mechanic of freezing drop crystals with your charge shot for bonus points and multipliers. Your charge shot, outside of changing the value of cubes, will also take enemy bullets off the board that are in its path. This will give you some breathing room when those battles are getting heated, but you have to keep in mind each time you fire a charge shot, your overall shot power will go down until it charges again. Each down enemy will drop crystal cubes that are yellow, and while you can still collect these, shooting them again with a charge shot will turn them blue or green, which will net you bigger bonuses. Thing is here is that if you rinse all of your stocks, you lose your score and multipliers. You can respawn and continue immediately where you go down, but if you lose all your stocks, your score drops to 0. Oh, and it's also one of those one-hit scenarios, so blasting everything in sight and dodging all the hazards are both crucial. Your controls are fairly tight, but your ship is on the slower side, so learning how to navigate those tricky fire patterns confidently will be paramount to survival here. The enemies are going to throw a lot of fire patterns at you, and a favorite you'll see a good bit of are bullets that trace you and lasers that will fragment into right angles. These are totally going to throw you off guard the first few times you see them, and it won't be until you get fried by them several times we'll be able to better anticipate them. Bullet hurting will also be crucial to adopt as you play, considering how many projectiles will track your movement. Through the game's 6 stages, you'll be somewhat eased into how the mechanics work, but by the middle of the game you'll need to have it dialed, as the game will throw progressively more enemies and advanced fire patterns your way. If you're familiar with games like R-Type or Polestar, this will feel similar. There will be points where to progress you have to play defensively, as there will be encounters where you cannot damage the enemy at first. For the most part, the game is pretty straightforward, and you have all the tools needed to survive, but that won't be without its challenges. Graphics wise, Razion EX has a style that's very reminiscent to later SNK games like Polestar, its sequel Blazing Star, and prehistoric Isle 2 using 16-bit CGI graphics. It's neat this has a 2.5D appearance that rarely hits visual snags even when the gameplay gets insane. There's also a variety of screen filters and settings which are fairly customizable, like scanline settings that can be modified or turned off completely. Stages are wonderfully detailed with layers of parallax scrolling, in addition to its stage design that typically has a lot going on in the background and foreground playfield. This reminds me a lot of Axelay's horizontal levels that have more mechanical interiors and eventually underwater chasms and caves, many with water physics like rustling inlets and waterfalls. Attention to detail on the stages alone is really sick to look at as you play through the game. Enemy sprites are also in the vein of Polestar and R-Type, which I'll reference a few times here, considering the body horror nature of some of the sprites coupled with the mechanical of others. Stage 3 has a mid-boss that looks like a giant T-800 Terminator that later comes back as a main boss encounter alongside several grotesque biomechanical enemy types that all look sick. Boss designs are all huge creations that take up 2/3 of the screen, often dwarfing your small craft as you go into battle. From the rip, the first boss you'll face is a giant mechanical missile hurling crab that fires off the first of many tracer rounds. From there, each encounter gets increasingly more hectic and eye-popping as the attacks get crazier, much like the overall designs. By the final boss, you've got a monstrous behemoth that looks like Kane's brain from the jar in RoboCop 2 if it were also free to roam and equipped with a few dozen laser cannons. Overall, the designs and encounters are all pretty awesome, and figuring them out is just as fun as they are to look at. However, there are no cutscenes in the game, similar to Crystal Breaker, which we looked at last video, and in between stages are splash graphics of the pilots that crawl across the screen as you go to the next mission. Depending on the difficulty chosen, you're playing either one of 3 colored craft, each with rather buxom pilots, and regardless of which difficulty you're playing as, the splash screens are the same, showing the same static image of them scrolling across the screen, similar to the game's opening sequence. There's also no ending cutscene either, but it does have a few 6 static images along with the game's credit sequence. Sound-wise, Razion EX is awesome with its ultra-hype soundtrack that matches the action with its ambient and jump-up electronic tracks. Composer Andre Neumann lays down a diverse and high-energy soundtrack that has a bit of everything from jump-up drum and bass, trance, and some ambient down-tempo tunes for good measure. The soundtrack slaps something fierce here, and is different on each level. The boss themes are also big tunes with acid synths and driving bass lines as you go into battle, and these, much like the stage tunes, are awesome. Sound effects work is also solid, even though it does have a few missing elements that you would come to expect. Where it excels in general is that the sound design has some great audio work with its gunfire and explosions during stages. When your charge shot is ready, you'll hear a chime audibly telling you that it's good to go, along with sounds of your cannon's mag dump zipping through every level. Explosions are nice and weighty with some serious crunches to take down the bigger enemies, and your craft also has some nice chain explosions as you go down. But in short, the sound design is awesome despite there being spots where they could have went a little bit further with some actions that don't have audible feedback. Razion EX, much like prior NG Dev releases, is another solid title in their catalog, with this one being a horizontal shoot 'em up that has very straightforward gameplay, but is also very engaging. This also being a late Neo-Geo port with some new additions also makes a great experience for novice and veteran players alike. It's an all-around great package despite it being short and not having any narrative, but the gameplay and fun factor make that easy to overlook. It's also a game that has some bite to it with the difficulty, and going for 1cc runs will be challenging, but it certainly is possible. For Razion EX, it's an 8 out of 10 and comes recommended to fans of horizontal shoot 'em ups, especially ones like R-Type or SNK published horizontal shooters. It will certainly make you work for those clears, and especially those one-coin clears, but you'll have a good time as you make your attempts and figure the game out. NG Dev has a good track record on their games being a little bit different each time, and this follows suit with another great release. This is on the Switch eShop for $20, and if you can find a physical copy, it's a certified pickup for the Switch or Neo-Geo. NG Dev is becoming a developer to keep an eye on, as each release consistently bangs, and is certainly worth your time to check out. And if you made it this far into the video, thanks so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, that's awesome. I'm glad you use it as a resource. Check back often, we'll have more reviews and commentaries come up in the near future. But until then, take it easy and stay safe out there. I'll see you on the next one.